Hello and welcome to episode 67 of the HamCorp Training Manual. In this episode, we will implement the entire Monazite and Bastnasite lines. We will also go over how to set up a dissolution tank. So I've started to plan out my Bastnasite and Monazite lines over here. I had a flowchart to show, but I'm kind of reconsidering whether there's even a point to showing it because it's going to be so long and complicated that I'm just going to yap about it for like 7 minutes, and then I'm just going to yap about it again for another 7 minutes once I actually set everything up. So I think I'm just going to set everything up, and then I'll talk about each step, or if not each step, then each kind of sub-process that's happening here. It'll make more sense when I do it. And actually, there is some overlap in how these two ores are processed. So the very first step for both of them is to send them to a digester with nitric acid, and you get silicon dioxide and one of two solutions. You get the muddy Bastnasite rare earth solution for Bastnasite, and you get muddy Monazite rare earth solution for Monazite. And then after that, it kind of diverges. The Bastnasite goes into an oil cracker, and the Monazite goes into a dissolution tank. But it does kind of converge again later, because the Bastnasite, after going into the oil cracker and then into a mixer, goes into a dissolution tank. So there are different points in these two processes where we can share machines, and I don't need to make two dissolution tanks. I don't need to make multiple of a lot of things actually, because I'm not really after speed here. I'm just after processing this at all. And if I do want speed, I'm planning to make everything a multi-block, or at least as many things as possible multi-blocks. So all I'd have to do is just upgrade the multi-block. I think that's better than making new single blocks, because you get parallels, you get EU discounts. It's just better. It is more expensive as an upfront cost, but that's the price you pay for progress. So I'm going to start putting some things together, starting with the digester, I think. And if there's anything of note, like for example, the dissolution tank, how I'm going to handle this ratio thing, I will talk about that. Quick update. I decided to make a second dissolution tank, just so that there's no weirdness, because I'm doing two different recipes and both of them use water. So I didn't want there to be any conflict and then have us be basically voiding everything for no reason. So I finished the Bastnasite and Monazite lines up to this point where the dissolution happens. For Monazite, it's just digester and then straight here. For Bastnasite, there's a few more steps in between. Conditioned Bastnasite mud goes here, and the muddy Monazite rare earth solution goes here. So these two digesters are completely independent. It's just sharing one wall of blocks because why not? And the redstone logic here to make sure that the ratios are correct, it's pretty much identical for both machines. So I'm just going to explain the one, and you can assume that it's the same, just with some numbers tweaked based on the recipe. So this recipe here on the right is for diluted Bastnasite mud. We combine water with conditioned Bastnasite mud along with some saltpeter dust, and we get this waste dust, gang. This has no use. You can turn it into a singularity and then, I don't know, void it. Seems like kind of a meme object, but I'm just going to void it. And we also make the diluted Bastnasite mud. So, of course, it's important to make sure that the water and conditioned mud are in a 10:1 ratio. And we accomplish that using some redstone logic over here. So first of all, what we do is we store the two inputs in their buffers over here. So the mud goes into the super tank, and the water goes into this ultra low voltage fluid tank coming from this reservoir. So both of these inputs have the same logic applied to them with this with these two pieces of red alloy wire. Similar thing set up over here. So this block behind the red alloy wire is an input hatch. You can kind of see it. There's like a pixel where you can click it for some reason. But this is the input hatch, and you can see it has exactly 1,000 liters of conditioned mud inside. The way we do this is with a fluid detector cover set to inverted mode and set to 1,000. So this will emit a redstone signal when there's less than 1,000 liters of mud in this input hatch. That signal goes up here, and it also goes to the left, but we'll come back to that. So this signal goes up here to the buffer. On this buffer, there is a machine controller cover set to enable with redstone. And on the bottom face of the super tank, there's a fluid regulator set to use machine processing state. I don't know why there's no redstone option here, but whatever. So this is kind of how we have to do it. What that does is it reads the state of the machine controller, which remember is on when the redstone is on. And when it's on, it will export 1,000 liters of the contents of the super tank every 20 ticks, which is every second. We don't do, for example, 50 liters every tick because there is kind of a slight delay in the redstone signal in the like calculation, travel time, whatever, blah, blah, blah. So I just did it every 20 ticks, and that has seemed to work pretty much perfectly. We have an identical thing here with the water. There's a fluid detector cover, there's a machine controller cover, and there's a fluid regulator on the bottom. And this one we have set to 10,000. And again, when the hatch has less than 10k water in it, the buffer will push water into the hatch. And we have that same setup here for the monazite and for this other water as well. So that's how we ensure that the hatches have exactly the right amount for a craft. Here's a look at the craft again. 10k water, 1k mud. We have 10k water and 1k mud. And that's where the rest of this alloy wire comes in. We have these two signals coming in and leading to a NOR gate. When both of these signals are off, this output signal turns on, which turns the machine on because of this another machine controller cover. However, when either of these signals are on, or if both are on, then the output is turned off and the machine is turned off. That makes sense because these signals turn on when the hatch is not filled. So if, for example, we run out of conditioned Bastnasite mud, actually this is going to happen kind of soon, because I'm going to be left with 640 Bastnasite mud at some point. That's going to go into this input hatch, and there's going to be 640 in there, which is less than 1,000. So the signal comes on. One or more of the signals going into this NOR gate is on, therefore the output is off, therefore the machine is off. You don't really need to think too hard about the water because you're always going to have enough water. The craft times here are so long, 405 seconds at HV and 50 seconds at EV. So it's a little complicated, and we'll have to do this every time we use a dissolution tank. But it could have been worse. It could have been much worse. Anyway, the outputs currently I just have stored in these super tanks. I still have to build the rest of the lines. So I think the next step is sifting. It is. So I'm going to get back to work. So I've added a few more machines here. And I didn't ever think to do this before, but I placed the centrifuge with the controller on the top, and I kind of like how this looks. I placed a bunch of these sideways just for fun. I have the sifter going right now. This is where I've stopped for now. The monazite sulfate is stockpiling in this output bus, and then the filtered bastnasite mud will also start stockpiling in this output hatch. But while that's processing, I also dealt with one of the byproducts so far, which is hafnia zirconia blend dust. So this gets centrifuged over here, and you get two dusts, which I directly send into this input bus. The two dusts are hafnia dust and zirconia dust. These two dusts have exactly the same recipe for further processing, which is you chemical react program circuit 1 with hydrochloric acid. So I just send them both to the same input bus of one LCR, and it just does them in sequence. The next step is also the same for both these two products. So hafnium tetrachloride and zirconium tetrachloride. You also get some water, which I'm voiding. But these get combined with water, and you get zirconium tetrachloride solution and hafnium tetrachloride solution. So yeah, I know I just said I'm voiding the water, but this is honestly simpler to just have an infinite water source here and to void the water from the previous step, so whatever. And then these two solutions also have the same next step, which is to send it to a blast furnace. There's some slight differences. One of them gives you an ingot, one of them gives you a dust, and the heat capacity requirement for these two recipes is different. But besides that, everything else is the same. It's program circuit 2, it's magnesium, you get magnesium chloride dust, blah, blah, blah. And that happens here in this EBF. Now the magnesium chloride is reprocessed into magnesium, and that goes in a circle in this chemical reactor, which I supply with sodium dust, and I also get some salt here, which I'm voiding overflow. And the hot zirconium ingots I send into storage, because when I need zirconium, I can just do the cooling step. Honestly, I should pre-cool it, just send it straight to the cooler right now, but it's fine. But this low purity hafnium dust is currently stockpiling in this output bus, and that needs iodine to process. Because then the next step, you combine it with iodine and you get hafnium iodide, which you blast, and you get the iodine back along with hafnium ingots. And hafnium runoff dust, which is just, it doesn't do anything. I'm literally just going to void this. The iodine goes in a loop. Question is, how do you get iodine to start the loop? I have no clue. I couldn't find a good way, and honestly, the best way that I could find was this recipe, this centrifuge recipe, with seaweed concentrate and benzene. And you also get seaweed byproducts, which is useless and is going to be voided. A lot of stuff that has no use and is just going to be voided in these 2 lines. But anyway, how do you get seaweed concentrate? You get it from seaweed ash dust, which you get from small piles of seaweed ash dust, which you get from smelting seaweed. And seaweed you can get from gardens, but I did the math and I'm going to need 480 seaweed, so this is not, not really an option. So instead, I'm going to make this Zhuhai fishing port. This is a little misleading. This recipe doesn't give you just seaweed, it gives you a bunch of things. But that's a good thing. This is just passive materials, so I should have made this maybe a while ago, but it's kind of a niche thing, I think. But I'm going to get infinite ink sacs, infinite leather boots, bones, water bottles, basically all the trash you can get from fishing. And one of those trash items is seaweed. So it's just like a big pond, basically, is what this looks like. I think these I'm going to put kind of in like the farm area, because that makes more sense to me. But yeah, I can't process this hafnium anymore without the seaweed. So I'm going to set up a Zhuhai fishing port as well. Maybe I'll make like kind of like a docks kind of building over the river. That could look cool. Even though the river is frozen, but don't worry about that. I don't know. I don't know where to put it. I'll put it somewhere. Alright, I have this running now. It's a pretty simple multi. Just a program circuit, reservoir hatch, output bus. Shouldn't take too long to get 480 seaweed. I can always continue working on the main progression line. No problem. Oh man, that is finally done. That was a lot of work. It's almost all multis. There are a few single blocks, mostly for really quick processes or byproducts, I guess. Yeah, well, this is gonna be hard to troubleshoot if I have any issues. So, I don't think it really makes sense, and I don't think it'll be useful if I explain all of this. There's a kind of like a general layout here, which I'll try to explain, but it's not very, yeah, it's not divided up very well. So everything starts here at the digesters, the ore goes in, the Bastnasite goes through these set of machines over here as a little pre-processing step, and then both those products go from the digester into the dissolution tanks. From there, things diverge pretty quickly. So I've tried to separate it into 2 kind of groups of machines. You can't really see the distinction here, but it's kind of along this line right here. So everything to the right here is for byproducts, and everything to the left is for the main lines of processing. That said, there are also some byproducts that are handled here. Oh, it's such a mess. But it works. I have samarium now. It's coming in pretty slowly. I have a little more than a stack. I am having a few power issues here, and I don't know why. Sometimes I come to these machines and they've stopped working because they run out of power, but I don't see any reason they should run out of power unless like all of these are running at the same time, which should not happen. My theory is that the power just spikes over what this battery buffer can provide just for a little bit, and then that kind of causes issues. I don't know, I'll figure that out later, I guess. So far it seems to be stable. I added that battery buffer that I just showed in the middle, and since then nothing has crashed. So this seems to be stable, and it's going. There is one last thing I need to do here that I haven't done, and that is at the end of the Bastnasite line, there's this samarium terbium mixture dust that needs to be reacted with ammonium nitrate, and then from that you get samarium, gadolinium, and terbium. But ammonium nitrate is surprisingly difficult to make. There's a dehydrator recipe from hydrated ammonium nitrate slurry, and this slurry is made in a chemical plant, and I just didn't want to build a chemical plant right now and set it up and all of that. So I'll do this later. The Bastnasite is kind of a side thing anyway. I don't have as much Bastnasite as I do Monazite. My god, I have so much Monazite to go through. It's not even done. It's really slow, actually. This dissolution tank step is very slow, and also this specific chemical reactor that makes acidic monazite powder dust is very slow. So if you're building your own monazite line right now, or in the future, just overclock the shit out of those 2 steps. That is my humble advice. Everything else pretty much goes really quickly and is not an issue. But yeah, I don't think there's really any value in me going through all of the steps one by one. It's quite linear for the most part. There's a few byproducts, but yeah. But okay, that's done. I'm gonna quickly run through all of these machines and get all of these quests done. Pretty sure All of these are done, actually. Yeah, for sure. All right. Oh, man. Now, that was a lot of quests. This is gonna feel so good. Oh, that's a lot of coins. 51 Chemist 1000 coins. Wow. Good thing they're so useful. Thank you for watching this episode of the HamCorp Training Manual. In the next episode, we will craft the first of many LUV components. This is done in an assembly line, which should be an interesting challenge to automate. HamCorp would like to remind employees that any employee who watches 100% of a HamCorp episode is statistically more likely to be promoted faster. HamCorp would like to reassure viewers that correlation is not causation, except for here where it is. See you next time.